Welcome to a football show Monday edition brought to you by our wonderful, amazing, spectacular, and very local, very real friends, the Kingston Group and the Pharmacy Burger over there in East Nashville. That's the Pharmacy Burger and the Kingston Group, buildkg.com. My name is Braden Gall. He is Zach Lyons. Get into the comments, folks, because the off season is fully here, and we like to talk to you guys about all this great stuff that's going on. We might have a defensive backs coach for the Tennessee Titans, so we'll get to that. Lots of chaos. Yeah, maybe. Lots of chaos, of course, across the NFL and the playoffs in the weekend that was. But also, we're going to tie in, and I don't think any other show on the planet is going to do this, tie in the introductory press conference for the Titans' new general manager, Carthon, and what we heard, what we learned, what we felt coming out of that press conference, and what we saw take place over the NFL divisional round weekend, and what it all could mean for the Tennessee Titans moving forward. I don't think anyone else is doing that, Zach.
Well, I think there seems to be, not everybody when I say this, but there seems to be a lack of critical thinking skills and active listening, the ability to active listening, to what someone says and how to construct that into actual analysis. It seems to be lacking a little bit coming out of the Carthon press conference.
Yeah, that's probably true. Can everybody read my shirt, by the way? Some scheduling notes for if you're watching on the YouTube or on the Twitter, you can see what my shirt has to say, courtesy of the Sobros Network, of course. So I know you and Stoney heading down, little programming note, you and Stoney heading down to the Senior Bowl next week. So we're going to have live coverage all across every single day of practice on a lot of different shows. So just stay tuned. We'll give you some more updates on that as the week progresses. Some more details will unfold, but basically your one-stop shop for all things Senior Bowl coverage. Going to be right here with Zach and 440 and Broadway Sports Media and the Sobros Network. So a lot of fun stuff coming up next week for you guys. So just stay tuned. There is some chaos in the SEC, and I thought we just kind of go over these things a little bit later on in the show. There's too much drama happening in the SEC to just avoid it altogether. This way, you Titans fans, when you're hanging out with your buddies, you can have that one nugget of information about the portal.
My dog just threw up, and it looks nasty.
Like one of those where he's just got his tummy hurt and he just ate something bad, or like real bad throw up. How's Huxley?
I can't really tell. You're gonna have to go through our sponsors real quick while I look at this.
Zach is going to here's what we're gonna do first. For those of you not watching on YouTube and on Twitter, Zach is currently investigating closely his dog's vomit. So I just want to let you know that's why he's not currently here on the screen. He'll be back momentarily, but Kingston Group and the Pharmacy are two great and amazing local sponsors. They're going to give you all this great content from a football show from 440 Sports and Broadway Sports Media. And Zach's Substack, of course, brought to you by the Kingston Group and the Pharmacy Burger over in East Nashville. Do not make any decisions about your house until you talk to the Kingston Group. That's buildkg.com, Nashville's locally owned custom home and remodeling firm. Those are the folks to talk to about that. And if you need a great burger, a great bratwurst, some great tots, some great mustard, some locally sourced beers that you can't get anywhere else, at the Pharmacy, you're not there to watch games. It's not like happy hour specials to like watch big watch parties. It's about community with your friends and family and loved ones, having a good time with a good dinner and some good food at a locally owned establishment. How is the dog, buddy?
It was looking a little weird because we've been feeding him blueberries because blueberries, fight cancer and everything. So it was a different color throw up than what I'm used to seeing. And then The rest of it was I guess he didn't chew his the parts of his food that are consist of the macaroni because it was just a bunch of noodles. So, get you your food, Huxley.
So you are feeding your dog exclusively people food?
Well, I mean, I feed them. I mean, I guess so. If you whatever the company, it's wherever the company makes it, I'm assuming uses human grade food.
Okay, so you're not talking about like going to the grocery store, getting macaroni and cheese boxes and
no, just whatever whole wheat noodles they have in this the food that I buy, and then now the blueberries we just throw 4 blueberries in there. So
I had no idea that blueberries were battling cancer in dogs.
Yeah, or for dogs, antioxidants.
Fascinating. All right, so lots of stuff to get to today. Again, special thanks to the Pharmacy and to the Kingston Group for making this dog vomit show happen. We do appreciate them supporting us. So you should go out and support them as well. Turn on all of the notifications and be sure to check out Zach's Substack. That is
Stackingtheinbox.substack.com. I stacked the inbox this morning with a whole article about Tim Kelly, and I'm about done with one on the Kansas City Chiefs coordinators that were linked to the Tennessee Titans offensive coordinator job.
There you have it. And not a whole lot of news, frankly, about the offensive coordinator job, some of which is because a function of where we are in the schedule of the calendar. So if there's guys that they want off of these teams, that they just can't officially make any of these things happen. We might know that next week, depending on who advances or not, in terms of actual interviews. But what is the latest with the offensive? I mean, there's not really a whole lot to tell here. And I did not get to your Tim Kelly piece yet because I was too busy reading all of the other things that you stacked into the inbox.
I stacked the inbox. I mean, that's the whole point of the, the whole point of it. It's like your inbox is Derrick Henry and my emails are the defenders. I'm stacking the inbox for those that may have not gotten that reference. So essentially, the only real news that we got is that according to Vrabel, he interviewed he has interviewed or talked to numerous people about the offensive coordinator position. Now, we don't know what definition of numerous that Mike Vrabel has in his vocabulary. We don't know how he's using that. When we don't know if just because he said that they've talked to him, if that means interviewed or not, no real clarification on that comment. A little beef I have with the media on that is that the lack of follow-ups to that question to maybe dig a little bit deeper into that. And really, nobody asked Rand Carthon some thoughts on, his input that he'll have and all that kind of stuff. So just
he gave a lot of vague answers to a lot of those.
Well,
questions.
there were some really great questions, but the answers that I was looking for, you would have to actually ask the questions to get any kind of vague answer at all. I mean, there were some questions that were lacking. But the latest news that came out today was Tom Pelissero said Luke Steckel, tight ends coach for the Tennessee Titans, is going to interview this week for the offensive coordinator position with the Los Angeles Chargers. And then they have apparently talked about with Tim Kelly, the offensive coordinator position. They spoke to him is what the words were, which I think is interesting because that's not technically they interviewed him. I think the words are very important.
Well, like, are you walking down the hallway and Vrabel's just like, "Hey, you like 4 wide?" And he's like, "Nah." I'm like, "Oh, we talked to him about it."
Yeah,
like,
we don't know.
Is that all it is?
We don't know.
Oh man.
To me, it's just I'm looking at it all, and I think I'm with you. The rules are a little iffy. NFL.com says one thing, CBS Sports says another, but I think maybe NFL.com is misinterpreting the rules. I think that pretty much now that Saturday of the divisional round playoffs is underway, I don't think anybody that's in the championship games, anybody on any staff could talk to anybody the whole week until the conclusion of the championship games. Now, NFL.com has it written where they could talk about this all the way up to the Saturday before, and they have January 28th, but I think they're misinterpreting which Saturday that was supposed to be.
I've always been under the impression that there is, whether you lose or win the game on this weekend, either of the 4 teams, any of the 4 teams, that once that happens, you can speak to them for a week.
Yeah, so after the conference championship game, so this ties into my piece with the Chiefs. After the championship games have concluded, you have until February 5th, a week before the Super Bowl, to interview any candidates on these rosters that are heading to the Super Bowl.
And then that's it, because guess what? They have a game to coach coming up in the Super Bowl.
You're going to see any action on the Chiefs side because Mahomes being severely hampered, they're going to have to do a totally different game plan all week against a Bengals team that has given healthy Patrick Mahomes fits. So their focus, Matt Nagy and Eric Bieniemy, is going to be on the Kansas City Chiefs offensive game plan anyway, even if there was an opening, in this week.
So let's start with a broad sort of overview of the Rand Carthon vibes. Now, I was not covering the team locally in 2015. I was not at that press conference. I was at Rand's press conference on Friday, and I went back and watched the entire thing with J-Rob, Mike Mularkey, and Steve Underwood at the time. Fantastic goatee, Steve. Don't ever change. But the 3 of them were up there in a very, very different setting. Obviously, this was on the 3rd floor of the brand new building. It looked very big, very fancy. There was lots of cameras. It was a much larger ordeal in a very, very high sort of developed room that is designed to feel big time, like the Titans have. They've redeveloped the facility for a reason. The other one in 2015 was like in a tiny little room. I don't know where it was actually physically held, but you could tell it was just kind of like a dumpy little room. And Steve Underwood kind of spoke a very different way. All three of them at a table. Amy Adams Strunk came to the podium. Now, she should have answered some questions, in my opinion, but she did not take any eventually.
What questions were you going to ask her that you haven't already had the answers to?
Well,
because you're the second person that said that I've heard. Maybe that it may have been 2 or 3 people, but I've heard that, and I wonder what else do you need to know?
Well, there's still not and I know PK's big on this as well. There's still not technically, because in the John Robinson press conference, I think Paul asked this question in that press conference too. He specifically said who has final say on the 53, and J-Rob paused. He looked past Mike Mularkey to Steve Underwood, and Steve Underwood kind of like shook his head and was like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, I've got final say on the 53. And they kind of were because they are set in a 2-pillar system, and Rand was very clear in a lot of different sort of ways by saying things like his vision is his vision for the team, and I'm here to get the best players for his vision. He wants this, and this in these systems, and I'm going to try to acquire this, and this. And when Paul kind of pressed him on, well, but who actually does have final say on this stuff? They both kind of danced around it a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it comes to the point, like, how often is Amy Adams Strunk going to have to come in, in your opinion, and lay down the hammer and have to do like a was it King David that split the baby in half in the Bible? Like, how often is that going to happen? Yeah, how often is that going to have to happen? Like, is it? I guess I'm at the point is when is it a big deal? And don't we know that ultimately Amy Adams Strunk has the final say if there were contention? She has said they both report to me, and if there's disagreements, I'll make a decision. Well, doesn't that answer your questions? Like,
no, well, in a perfect world, like if you're a Titans fan, this shouldn't be relevant because in a perfect world, they work in lockstep together as a team. Like that's their whole. That was their collaboration. Was he even said, "I'm going to beat you over the head. I'm going to kill you. I'm going to kill you with the word collaboration," and he did. And so did Amy, and so did Mike Vrabel, and so they kind of. The different, like one of the things that was similar though to that John Robinson Mike Mularkey press conference was exactly that conversation though. In fact, they used the phrase, "We have an aligned vision, natural fit." My job is to get the players that fit into his system. Like it was very similar language from John Robinson in his introductory press conference, which, by the way, there was a ton of excitement about because he was a Tennessee boy and he was coming home and he gave his little rah-rah speech at the end of that. I grew up on a farm with my dad working and blah, 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 blah. And so there was a lot of energy and excitement around that press conference as well, with very similar messages than there was on Friday with Rand. I'm not suggesting that the franchise is in the same place. They are in very different places with very different expectations coming up over the next few years. So it felt big time on Friday. It felt much bigger. It felt like an established NFL franchise that has been winning for years. It feels like Rand Carthon is a little bit more conducive to personal relationships. Even going back and watching J-Rob in his first press conference, he was very sort of like, he's kind of got that stiff upper lip thing, and so, but they also used a lot of the same language as well. So those are some observations.
Well, I mean, I think that's just league wide. I mean, probably just sports wide in general when you're having these press conferences, using a lot of language overlap and everything. Right. When you look at it that way, I look at it this way. He is gonna, for the media and for us covering it, it's going to be the press conferences when Rand Carthon is made available are going to be so much more interesting and so much more better than anything that John Robinson has ever put forth on a microphone or tape, because there's personality, he has stories, he has connections. The
Elijah Mitchell story was great.
Oh, it brought a tear to my eye for multiple levels, multiple reasons. And to me, I want to go back a little bit to what we were talking about, is this whole power structure thing that everybody's making a big deal on, and everybody wants to know the questions to, and all blah, blah, blah. I look at a guy like Mike Vrabel, because this question got brought up, or this, I think A to Z put out a tweet talking about how Rand Carthon made the hire for Chris Harris or whatever it was, something along those lines. And there was a lot of people correcting them, like, no, that'd be Mike Vrabel. And then a lot of people are then trying to, how Twitter is, put in their all these opinions and stuff. In probably Mike Vrabel's original contract extension and probably his original contract, he has final say over his coaching staff. And I'm sure in John Robinson's contract, it said, I have final say over personnel. I think we can draw those logical conclusions. Well, Mike Vrabel's contract is still valid, and Rand Carthon has a new contract. And from everything that we've heard Rand Carthon say is that I am here for Mike Vrabel. Does that mean, and I look at it this way, they both come from similar playing backgrounds. They sound a lot alike to me in terms of their vision, their background, the way they view the game, the way they think the game should be won. There's probably going to be like 2 or 3 players that Mike Vrabel's probably get in their entirety of their career are probably going to step in and say, we have to have this guy, and they'll disagree. I think overall you're going to see guys that agree largely on everything that's done. And I think that Mike Vrabel will probably trust Rand Carthon a lot more. Maybe not year one until he sees what he's doing. I don't see the need, other than that everybody wants to create conflict in the media, that this is that important right now.
No, I don't think it's that important. And again, in a perfect world, if these two people work together, great. And even if they're not like friends, they don't have to be friends. I think that's super overrated in general. Like in a workplace environment, at an office, you're not going to get along with everybody. But can you cohabitate and work together and be productive? That's a totally different thing. And I think as long as, if you're, again, a Titans fan, that whatever the organization is on the back end is working, that's all that matters. Like, and I think Rand comes across as a guy who is very compatible with a lot of different types of people.
He also knows how to navigate this, right? He's
I think
seen
so.
seen this from his own perspective, so he kind of knows how to navigate this, because ultimately Kyle Shanahan has the final say over everything if reports are to be believed. Now, Vrabel doesn't technically, because again, contract language and all that kind of stuff, but I think it comes to a point where I think it really depended on who the general manager was going to be for this to matter, in my opinion.
So, first of all, they both also ran, and John Robinson thanked Thomas Dimitroff during their opening press conferences. They both also talked about the New England way in their opening press conferences. There's just a lot more similarities that I think people realize, but I think the differences could be the reason you make the move, which is this collaborative sort of ability to sort of see things through somebody else's perspective and maybe manage a little bit more, like, I don't want to say like a player's coach versus sort of the disciplinarian, but that is the vibe that I got coming off of Rand Carthon versus John Robinson, and being around John Robinson on the practice field for the last 5 years. There's a stiff upper lip, rule with an iron fist type of vibe to JR, whereas Rand clearly comes across as, I'm here for Mike. I'm here for the players. I'm here for my family. I'm here for, Miss Amy, all this other stuff. And so I think it's really interesting. I felt at the press conference that Mike Vrabel was in complete control. that is what I felt. He physically towers over people. He just has a personality that is the most commanding.
So much happier. And I get a couple of people are not reading into that, and they're saying, well, he's done with the losing streak or whatever. Some of Mike Vrabel's meanest, worst press conferences are after wins.
Oh yeah,
like
Nick
his
Saban.
Demeanor is always the worst after wins, and this demeanor is the happiest I've ever seen Mike Vrabel in my life.
Nick Saban is identical when he knows his team is playing well. He gets more angry, right? Like that's what happens. Here's a quick observation though, and this is complete just human psychology, right. Like randomness, because again, there felt like a lightness and an airiness to that press conference that I don't normally get from Mike Vrabel. I think he, like to your point, felt very loose, very happy, but he also felt like there was a little bit of power there, in my opinion. I want to know what you think about this, because this is just the first thing that came into my head when I saw every single employee in that lobby giving like a ridiculously over-the-top welcome to Rand Carthon, who walked into the door, and they've got the whole thing. Everybody's in the facility, and they're doing the whole applause, and they're doing everything. I know it was for social media. I know that. And they posted it immediately. It felt like a big, giant fuck you to John Robinson.
Well, I think Rand Carthon got announced officially hired on his fucking birthday. on
Well,
Robinson's birthday. I mean,
I guess.
I mean, to me, I think it's not really a big fuck you to John Robinson as much as it is a.
I know it's not. But
No, as much as it is a. Guys, this guy's 100 times better than John Robinson.
it felt like a little bit of a subtweet.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like it felt
yeah.
like a subtweet troll of, look how much we love this new guy. And again, I know it's for social media, it's for promotional purposes, and you're trying to build up some video, and I get all of that. But I'm just saying, again, I'm a big studier of sort of the psychology of a press conference and the energy and the body language. I think it's performative. I don't think you get a lot of great detail out of this stuff. Again, the Elijah Mitchell story from Rand was great because there actually was some detail in there. But again, hey, we're not all that different. I'm not going to change the scouting department until after the draft, which is exactly what JR said in his press conference.
Which is par for the course.
Very par for the course. Like the whole thing felt very much like me and Vrabes. We already speak the same language, and we're just going to spend a lot of time together over the next few months getting to know each other to make sure all of our stuff aligns. He also kind of said about scouting, which is the one thing I wanted to know. And Joe Rexrod asked it kind of before I did, and then that was all I needed. But he basically said, look, I trust we're going to have analytics. We're going to use analytics, but I trust my eyes too. And that's almost identically to what JR said.
Minus the analytics part.
But I think I think he's, because again, some of the people that worked underneath him and ran the analytics department at San Francisco have gone on to do very successful things in Minnesota and elsewhere. So I think there's clearly more of that, but it's not all that different. He's like, I got to still trust my eyes with what I see and then marry that to the data.
Well, that's the thing I was going to say, is that obviously he's going to marry it because that was the whole Elijah Mitchell thing. Like maybe he didn't really have time to look at Elijah Mitchell, but someone brought to him the data and said, hey, here's Elijah Mitchell. This guy's the best outside zone runner in this class. I think he's going to be a huge hit and a great fit for San Francisco. I need you to watch the tape, though. I need you to look at it. And so Rand Carthon did. To me, in my mind, if someone came to John Robinson and said that, he would say, yeah, hand me that name. I'll get to it later, and would never fucking get to it because he's just like, I don't care about analytics. Because, I mean, maybe that's just an over-exaggeration, but that's what it seems like from John Robinson's demeanor and reactions to questions about the analytics and the lack of development. You talk about human psychology. There's two things I want to hit on that tie into that, okay? Into your human psychology. I picked up that when Amy Adams Strunk was doing her introduction of Rand Carthon in that, not in any of the other stuff, just on this press conference, she was reading and pretty much was monotone the whole way. And then she gets to a part where she talks about how they will work together to find talent and right players on this team. She specifically emphasized the word right, her tone. She looked up at the camera. Obviously, this is another dig at obviously when you fire your GM, you don't think your roster is good enough. But obviously, she's putting that on John Robinson for not giving Mike Vrabel the right players. And I think that's what it ultimately is coming down to. It's one of two human interaction pieces. Your thoughts?
I think that's true. I think she also made it very clear, like, we went through this process and it was very clear that he was the obvious choice for us. I had one person on Twitter be like, oh, I can't believe they just hired the token. And I'm like, dude, like, this is, first of all, 3 out of the 8 candidates that were rumored to be on this list that they were interested in were white. So, like, basically 60% of the NFL is black. And this guy's resume precedes him at an extraordinary level. Every single person that she said, like, literally every single review we got from everybody was a glowing review about this player. Again, I'm paraphrasing, or about this GM. I'm paraphrasing here. So that I think you kind of just, I thought it was very clear she made it clear that this was the right person for the job, that we never really had any doubts, that we kind of had him from the beginning, and that Vrabel approved of all of it. Like, I got the sense that, like, I think Stoney said it here. Vrabel looked like he had just gotten out of a 20-year marriage and got divorced, and he was acting like he's, like, free for the first time. And I want to get to a lot of your questions, by the way. There's a lot of really good ones in here, so I want to get to those in just a second. But I want, Zach, you to give me your second observation.
Why is nobody but me talking about Parag Marathi? Nobody but me did nobody, when I heard that name, because he mentioned
It's hard to say the name.
No, it shouldn't be. Well, for local media people, it definitely would be for the Tennessee residents. But when he specifically thanked him, like everybody that he's thanking in this message, you're like, okay, I know that person, I know that person, I know that person. And then he just name drops Parag Marathi out of nowhere and says, I've learned so much from Parag Marathi about the business side of the NFL that I've never been exposed to. And to me, I'm like, whoa, that's huge. Who is this guy? Who is this Parag Marathi? And I couldn't believe it that nobody has talked about this, but for those that don't know, and for those who have not subscribed to Stack in the Inbox, this is why you should, because I am a fucking detective and I read too much into everything. But this is, I think, appropriately. Marathi is the current president of 49ers Enterprises and executive vice president of football operations. He's been with the 49ers for 22 years.
It's a long time.
So what could Carthon learn from Marathi? Okay, he is the chief contract negotiator and salary cap architect. So every free agent contract, every extension, he spearheaded. This comes in handy for Carthon because that's what the Titans are about to have to go through. They're going to have to go through and make tough decisions. They're going to have to renegotiate with certain players to try to get their cap hit down. They're going to have to hit free agency hard and get good players on good deals and manage a salary cap that is currently $17 million over the cap. This is huge, and nobody wants to talk about it. And that's not it. Guess who oversaw the analytics department? Parag Marathi.
Well, and the Minnesota GM.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he's over the Minnesota GM. I mean, like this guy's over
right.
you know who hired the Minnesota GM? Parag Marathi. And nobody's talking about it. I am the only person, and I wrote all kinds of words on it. This is important.
No, listen, I think
up with media people not picking up. No. It just drives me nuts.
No, well, here's the thing, though. Like, I think first of all, you have to also understand how like mainstream media works. Like, you can't do a segment on Parag Marathi on like 104.5 The Zone. You can't do it. It's not going to work.
Well, shit, they do shit that's less interesting than that.
I listen. You know what? You and I can go back and forth on the science of radio, and I disagree with it.
I bet I could get some good high ratings on Parag Marathi.
Maybe. I think here's the key. This goes back to our last episode on Thursday when he got hired, is that he checks every single box as to what you would want someone to have from an experience standpoint coming into a general manager job for the first time. But every single one of those is, I learned from this person. I learned how to do this from this person. I practiced at this over here. He's just never been in the lead role, and that's all. Like, there doesn't mean he's not going to be great at it or he's going to be terrible at it. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that every single piece lines up pretty positively for him to be the most qualified candidate, and it's why he got the job. And I think that's where we're at. I left that press conference with a sense of empowerment and refreshment from Mike Vrabel, and that Rand Carthon is just a far more interpersonal, human, psychologically intelligent, evolved creature than John Robinson was. But I don't necessarily think that they are drastically different philosophically, because they both come from the same kind of tree of team. They're still going to be doing it for Mike Vrabel's team philosophically, which is going to be physical and fast and versatile. I don't
know if John Robinson really did that for Mike Vrabel.
Maybe you're right. I just mean that like, and again, they're two very different people, and I think the emotional intelligence, and Sony used that phrase, I think is off the charts for Rand, and I think that's why he fits this situation better, because you've already got a ready-made organization, and he has to kind of come in and figure out how he fits in versus coming in and doing it my way, which is a lot of GMs want to do. And so I think that's a really valuable asset in this situation. Let's get to a couple of quick comments here. Donnie D, King Solomon, Zach, is who I believe cut the baby in half. Do you think an internal or external hire for offensive coordinator, says AE?
I am going with a external hire. Unless it's maybe Luke Steckel coming out of left field because the Titans can't afford to lose him, which they could technically, because Tim Kelly could be the tight ends coach because he was already assistant tight end coach and in duties and responsibilities, according to all the context clues we've been given. But I think at this point it's external.
D Good says, if you were Rand, what would you give up for Trey Lance, Zach? And I saw an NFL insider basically say he's not worth more than a
Yeah, that's
second or
apparently
third round pick right now.
apparently Mike Silver, the San Francisco Chronicle, has talked to numerous execs across the league, and the general feeling is that they'll never get close to what they gave up for him, and that you're looking at possibly a third round pick as the most you could get for them. And if I'm Rand,
That's not a terrible idea.
that's not a terrible idea.
If you love him.
If he loves him. But you also need to trade Ryan Tannehill in the sense that you cannot keep both. And here's why. Because if you trade away your 2023 third-round pick, you're not going to have a third-round pick. You're not going to have a fourth-round pick in this year's draft back-to-back. You're missing out on 2 rounds in which Rand Carthon has pretty much said he's pretty damn good in. And his track record would dictate. So you would have to get some picks from the Ryan Tannehill trade to compensate for that. I've talked to a couple people that cover the San Francisco 49ers, and Kyle Madsen, who writes for, I believe, Niners Wire, I think is what it's called. I can't imagine the 49ers just give Lance away for a third. His upside is still there, and he's cheap enough that it's worth finding out over the next couple of years whether he can develop or if he just sucks at football. I think that essentially this is going to carry over into this year. There's going to be a Purdy, Lance, in quotation marks, quarterback battle that is Purdy's job to lose, not Trey Lance already has it in the bag.
I would guess that just from my seat, it's Purdy's job to lose, but also having 2 guys on rookie contracts, not a bad way to go about trying to win, especially when you might already win a Super Bowl this year anyway.
Right.
And you can kind of let Jimmy G do his thing and move along. Now, is Purdy a long-term answer? Maybe not. I don't know. Trey Lance still has far more talent and upside than Brock Purdy, but you're not going to. I've been in love with Brock Purdy for 4 years. I love Iowa State football, so you're not going to hear me say a negative word about Brock Purdy.
The reports you hear from players about Brock Purdy, none of them are surprised dating back to training camp this year that he is doing what he's doing. And apparently he came in and gained the trust of this team fairly quick. I don't think they ever thought that he would be in this position, obviously, because that's why you have Trey Lance, and that's why you re-signed Jimmy G, because you couldn't get anything for Jimmy G, so you might as well just kept him and restructured the contract.
Right.
But for all intents and purposes, they could have saved themselves a buttload of money this year if they just had let Jimmy G go, I guess.
All of which ties into the hell of a job the 49ers front office has done constructing a roster that might be the favorite to win the Super Bowl right now, especially considering the Mahomes injury, which brings me to 2 quick points over the weekend about the playoffs, brought to you, of course, by the Kingston Group and the Pharmacy. The first point brought to you by the Pharmacy. I don't know why, just because. The Pharmacy Burger, great place to go eat, super affordable, not going to sacrifice on quality. You got great local beers that they kind of source from all over the state. They'll bring in Memphis beers that you've never had before. Can't get them anywhere else. They'll pair them with a great new burger. They got the new Bayou Burger. It's great. It's fantastic. Go over there. Put your screens down, commune, have a communal experience, eat some great food. First point. The amount of people on Twitter that were like, I've never seen a quarterback have a high ankle sprain and then come back into the game. What extraordinary toughness. That's true. It was extraordinary toughness from Patrick Mahomes. We also saw the exact same thing from Ryan Tannehill this year.
Well, now that's a big assumption that you guys think that Rich Eisen watched the Tennessee Titans at all this year. Because he just says, I haven't seen that.
It wasn't just him. It wasn't just him. It was a lot of people.
Do you think a lot of people will sit around? Listen, let me tell you something. Rich Eisen hasn't seen it because he hasn't watched your fucking team.
Well, he's not been on the bus either.
That's where I'm at. Okay, I don't care. Move on. Next topic. What's your next topic?
And this is the real one here. Built by the Kingston Group. BuildKG.com. Nashville's locally owned custom home and remodeling firm. Are you willing to acknowledge that Josh Dobbs was a forward pass? Because the last 2 weekends, those arms were hit way before.
No, I think they got the Josh Allen call wrong.
What about the one last weekend? I can't remember who it was.
I don't know.
One last weekend
show me the clip, Easton. I mean, people are asking me about all these things.
They were both ruled incomplete passes.
I don't know what last week's was. You can't even name me the fucking quarterback. So what good is this argument?
Yeah. Well, because it's true. The last 2 big ones that were reversed, and get into the comments and help me out here, but the last 2 big ones were reversed, and the quarterbacks lost control of the football dozens of frames before Josh Dobbs did. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah,
Just wanna
I'll
it
say
was
this.
it was
I can only speak to what I've seen, and I've seen Josh Allen and Josh Dobbs, and both Joshes should have been ruled a fumble.
I think Allen's was way, way, way closer to a fumble
I
than
think it's the
Dobbs
other.
was.
Well, I'll say this: his arm and Josh Dobbs's arm were a little seconds apart in their progress. I thought Josh Allen's was further back, but he definitely,
Yes.
because of his ability to throw the ball, had more control in the actual throwing motion. The ball was jostled out of Dobbs. Dobbs had no control, no matter where the arm was at.
That's completely wrong. Jason
Yeah.
says Dobbs' arm moved forward by inches before the defender touched him. It's not even
I
that. The
think
defender
it's
hit
to
him.
me is that everybody. I don't think the NFL knows, the referees know where actual forward motion is at,
Yeah.
and I think it's actually you got to have like a 1 o'clock motion. That's when if you're
Well,
at
no,
12 o'clock, that's not to me is
no,
not
no.
forward.
The rule is the football has to be literally, and he said it on the broadcast. He's like the football so there's 30 frames in a second of video footage. You have 30 frames. If one frame of video has the football going forward, not the arm, the football going forward, and there is control, then it's a forward pass.
Okay,
That's
so
it.
that explains why Dobbs, because he had no control. So that explains that.
You and I disagree on that, but again,
Okay, well, I mean, I guess maybe Josh Dobbs is so fucking smart that I guess when it was wobbling, he must have been using his fucking mind, and like that was he was actually making it shake. Maybe he gave it a Pfizer vaccine. I don't know,
oh,
but
God,
give me a fucking break. That it was not already out of his hands.
Hang on. The point is that if they are so like if you and I can if reasonable minds can look at these plays,
I think they were both a fumble
and disagree or agree or disagree with each other on this stuff. And one of them is a long review in which it is overturned, and the other one takes half a second and is not even really reviewed at all. That is, I think, where Titans fans have a complaint. Is that the process was obviously not the same.
I am sick of CBS cutting to commercial without showing us replays.
Well,
that was
true.
ridiculous that they cut to a commercial at that spot and did not show one replay of the Josh Allen fumble that got overturned.
I really just wanted to get you worked up. That's all.
I mean, they were both fumbles, so I get good job being wrong. I guess
Josh Dobbs did not fumble. Kingston Group Pharmacy, never wrong if you go to the pharmacy. Never wrong when you use the Kingston Group. That, Zach, we can agree on.
Yes.
Make sure you check out those great folks, and of course, Stacking the Inbox.substack.com. Broadway Sports Media, 440 Sports, all the great shows across the platforms. Make sure you check all of that stuff out. All right, what do we learn as it pertains to the Tennessee Titans through the lens of the NFL playoffs this weekend? What exactly? Because I love watching the 49ers run the football and hearing Rand Carthon say, yeah, we like to run the football.
Yeah. I thought that was a big critical thinking test that a few people failed, because obviously the question was, can you build around a running back? Which is not a very good question in my opinion. Can you build a Super Bowl winning team around the running back? Because no, you build a Super Bowl running team around an efficient run game. And that is what an efficient, effective run game is what Rand Carthon turned his answer into to the bad question, the poorly worded question. And people are like, well, this means Derrick Henry's staying. Oh, he loves Derrick Henry. No, this just means that he recognizes that an effective and efficient run game breeds success as the months go on. You need that. And there is no better example than Bengals versus the Bills, where the Bills just have refused to properly address and commit to the run game. And it fails every single time that they're in the playoffs because they cannot do anything. They cannot commit. And the Bengals, while yes, Joe Burrow went down the field pretty easily, you have to look at the plays that were called in between all these big flashy plays, which were run plays, and they were getting creative with it. The 49ers kind of went away from the outside zone run for whatever reason. We're going a little bit more gap and going a little bit more up the middle. But all these teams that won were like 120 yards total rushing or more. That is what he's speaking to when he's talking about the effectiveness of the run game. Not that, well, damn it, Derrick Henry's here and we're going to build around Derrick Henry. No. The foundation for this team has been and will always be you win in the trenches, and you need to have a great run game, an effective run game, an efficient run game, and you need to have an efficient passing attack.
So here is the key for the modern football scheme: Friday nights, Saturday nights, Sunday nights, NFL playoffs, and especially with Rand Carthon talking about as the season progresses into difficult weather, difficult situations. And I talked to a lot of coordinators in college football about why Mike Leach's offense never really got to the next level with Mike Leach. It's because he was too stubborn to make sure that the running game was valued when it had to be. This is the key to the most efficient offenses in the world right now. It's the air raid concepts in the passing attack mixed with when you have to run the football, can you? And that is with bad weather, that is in the red zone, and that is in short yardage, and that's with a lead. Those are the things you have to be able to do when it's about running the football, when and how you have to, not that like you're just going to give Derrick Henry 380 carries on first down every time. Like it's about picking and choosing and when you have to do it. And again, inclement weather with Buffalo would have been a time where you would have liked to have seen Buffalo do more of that. And Cincinnati did a little bit of it, but they also didn't need it. but the Niners, these teams, like it's about knowing, and the best college teams, it's about knowing this is when you have to run inside the red zone, short yardage, with a lead, bad weather.
And I looked at it the first, because everybody's like, oh, run first, run first, run first. Every one of these teams, besides the Kansas City Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, this includes Cincinnati, have called more run plays on first down than pass plays. Every single one of the teams in the playoffs has done that. Now, there is a difference between it because unlike the Titans, they were like 161 pass plays and then like 275 to 300 run plays. Like it's way different.
Right.
Run first approach in today's NFL means you have a balanced attack and you're able to minimize the amount of times you have to run because you run efficiently and effectively. But you're able to pass the ball at numerous times when you have to. And unfortunately, the Titans, with their offensive line, with their offensive weapons not being healthy, and with an idiot as offensive coordinator, had to skew heavily away from any kind of balanced attack. But we know with Art Smith that, yeah, he ran a lot of first down, but it was effective, efficient, and the passing attack was the same. That's what they have to get back to. And that's what Rand Carthon knows. It's not about building a team around a 29, about to be 30 fucking year old running back that's past his prime.
Fast, physical, and we talked about this on Thursday. I know you've been on the speed and size and physicality spectrum for a long time. This team has to get faster. They have to get bigger. The big one for me,
every game.
The big one for me on Thursday on our show, and I said the thing that I noticed the most about the 49ers, and we talked a lot about can they replicate the San Francisco 49ers game plan. So go back and check out that episode. But the biggest thing that they do better than almost everybody else is how versatile all those weapons are. I would argue there's a lot of versatility in the Chiefs' weapons. There's a lot of versatility in the Bengals' weapons, and a lot of versatility in those Eagles' weapons as well. Versatility and being able to do a lot of things with a lot of different pieces. Rand Carthon talked a lot about that at the press conference on Friday.
Everybody in the playoffs moves at lightning speed compared to the Tennessee Titans did. It seemed like, we talked about it in the middle of the season, how I felt like everybody was kind of running in quicksand compared to other teams when I'm watching like red zone and all this stuff. Like when you're watching the plays and you're watching these other teams play, I talked about this. It's like everybody seems really slow and like there's no passion, there's no speed. And maybe it's not the lack of passion, but it's definitely a lack of speed. And I think that's important. When you look at the players that catch balls, and I specifically was talking about the Ravens game, and it was Devin Duvernay caught a pass, and like he's making 3 people bring him down. Whereas like Robert Woods catches a pass, and he's like crumpled over newspaper and, and all this stuff. So like it's super important. But also all these players can get separation when needed. And that's something that like Brandon Ayuk, who is the 4th best skill player on the San Francisco 49ers, would be like a wide receiver 1 almost anywhere else. And it's because he has short area quickness. I don't think specifically that he has the long speed that, the Titans fans, when they hear speed, they think we need a guy that can run a 4.2 all the way down the field. And that's nice to have.
Mecole Hardman, Tyreek Hill.
You need a guy that's short area quickness that can gain separation and catch a ball and then turn it upfield. And that's what Brandon Ayuk does. That's what Deebo Samuel does. They get open because they're quick, not necessarily super blazing fast.
Yeah,
They are fast, but I mean, it's really depends on the short area quickness for this team, and that's what they need. Because right now you got Nick Westbrook-Akine, Chris Conley, Robert Woods, these guys without short area explosiveness, and it's got to be different.
No, IU. There was it was like 3rd and 13, and they were within field goal range, and it was
such a good play.
It was early in the game, and I want to say maybe late first, early second quarter, and they could have just been very conservative, kicked a field goal on the next down, and instead they ran a very long developing, like, triple move with Ayuk on the outside, which made the DB think he was going deep on like a skinny post, and then he stops, turns, and cuts it back, and Purdy had time, and he hits him right in the numbers, and it's because he sold it and then was quick enough to get back.
And so listen, again, his boy Elijah Mitchell that he collaborated with on the 6th round came in relief of Christian McCaffrey, and they didn't miss a beat.
All right, what do we learn about patience in the Buffalo Bills from this weekend?
Yeah, we're getting to the little SEC rapid fire here, and I'm curious because I'm curious to what people think in here, because I put out a joke tweet, or I retweeted a joke tweet. Let's start a dialogue, and it was someone else's tweet of Ryan Tannehill, number 17, Josh Allen, number 17, and Pam from The Office saying they're the same pitcher. I thought it's just funny, and I said let's start a dialogue, and because someone else had tweeted it, and I see people. I see the picture from the front of the newspaper talking about the failures of Josh Allen again in the postseason. So I wonder,
Mr. January.
I wonder if Josh Allen and Sean McDermott, are they going to be like Tony Dungy and Peyton Manning, where, okay, they'll get one Super Bowl. You're getting one Super Bowl out of this tandem, and it may be like 5 more years down the line before you get that one Super Bowl. Or are they going to be like, is he going to be like, what I say in the, Andy Reid and Donovan McNabb, where they make it to a Super Bowl, but they never win one together.
Yeah.
I wonder, because it seems to me Josh Allen, and not just Josh Allen, but I think the bugaboo of this Buffalo Bills defense not being able to stop anybody in the postseason is just kind of wild. There's something going on here. Stephon Diggs is already pissed off. He left the game almost immediately after it was over. We're talking like before any of the media could get in there. He's on the sidelines getting pissed off, and there was a play that he actually was legit on the field, like looking at Josh Allen, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you throw that ball like that? And I wonder, because this is going to probably be for the cross section of Josh Allen's career and his arc, in that this is probably one of the better teams that he'll be surrounded with from an offensive skill position, because everybody's just going to get more expensive and you can't keep everybody. Yeah. So I wonder, where is this going to land for Josh Allen in his career? Is he missing out on his opportunities and nobody's wanting to talk about because he's Josh Allen and he's a super nice guy?
Well, I mean, he's also, he does things physically that nobody else can do. So if he stays healthy, I think they're always going to have an opportunity to be near the top.
And when will he have to adjust out of that side of the game?
That would be my question more about, like, you can draft receivers, you can replenish an offense if you're good. If you can do it once, you can do it again. Generally speaking, not everybody. But as long as Allen is at the helm and the offense doesn't change too much and he can continue to do the things that make him dangerous, then I think they're going to be one of the best teams in the league. I think losing Von Miller on defense midseason really hurt their ability to rush the passer, and that changed some things.
I kind of want to say something. This idea that Leslie Frazier deserves another head coaching spot because of whatever, I don't think he's that good of it when it matters. So why would you want him as a head coach?
I think the other thing is, we also just like, when you talk about San Francisco and the number of weapons they have, right? Like the skill, like the Bengals, we've got at least they make millions of dollars to play football too. And they have an elite number 1 quarterback who's as good as Josh Allen, if not better. They've got,
he's definitely better in my opinion.
They've got an elite number 1 receiver who is as good, if not better, than Stephon Diggs. They've got an elite number 2 receiver who's better than anything Buffalo's got at number 2. They've got a tight end who came out of nowhere and is just as productive, in fact, more consistent maybe than Dawson Knox with Hayden Hurst. They've got a running back who is way better than anything Buffalo has. So there also is a moment
I will say
here.
This. I think James
Cincinnati's
Cook
fucking good.
Well, but they had a horrible offensive line. There's no way that they shouldn't have had more pressures and more sacks on Joe Burrow than what they did and what they were able to generate. I think it's absolutely ridiculous that they couldn't. And I
So
think
how does this? I agree with you. How does this tie to the Titans then? How does this tie to the future of Ryan?
Oh,
Tannehill?
it does. This was just a side subject.
Oh, okay.
But it was just a fun aside to compare him to Ryan Tannehill because they're having similar postseason struggles, and they both have went to the AFC Championship game once, and neither of them have been past that. And I'm not saying that Josh Allen can't, but man, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, future Tennessee Titan, Drake May or Caleb Williams or Bryce Young sure is going to make that a little bit harder.
I will say this, and I at first when you sent me the text message, I was like, this guy's fucking crazy. I did a little bit more digging. I did a little bit more research, and I thought, okay, it's not as crazy. I still don't agree with you, but the guy who's closest to Ryan Tannehill in the playoffs this year is Dak Prescott. Now,
yes,
I think Dak. I think Dak Prescott is a far better quarterback and football player than Ryan Tannehill. But
I think it's debatable.
But well, Dak has a better.
But I'm not going to worry about debating.
Yeah, Dak's better at like every single category statistically throughout his entire career. He's had way better weapons. I agree with all of that. He's also won like at a much higher rate over the course of his career. He wins like 64% of his games. His playoff statistics are insanely good. Like 1,600 yards passing in 6 games. Ryan Tannehill like 700 yards passing in 5 games. But they do have the last 2 times we've seen them in the playoffs. We've seen both Ryan Tannehill and Dak Prescott make mistakes. I could not believe the Dallas Cowboys Twitter account. What?
Oh, yeah. 2 tweets. They put out 2 tweets, which I thought was ridiculous.
Doing?
The first tweet was Dak Prescott gave away the ball twice in the narrow loss to the 49ers in a matchup the Cowboys had a chance to win if they didn't again generate self-inflicted wounds. 2 hours later, they put out a different tweet that says the 49ers had more weapons than the Cowboys going into the game, and with the loss of Tony Pollard, definitely had way more ammunition in the second half.
That sounds like excuse. Both of those sound. One of them sounds just like social media manager should be fired.
Did you see what Saffold said about his excuse making? Did you see that? Saffold said, guys were exhausted during the week, and our coaches did the best they could to try to modify the week. But there was just uncharacteristic things that were kind of happening. I have to kind of put that into effect and not as an excuse. Just this team has been fighting for so long and fighting through all of this adversity. You almost run out of gas at some point. The Buffalo Bills, a lot of it, when I think of people that faced adversity in the NFL, Buffalo Bills at the top of the list.
Well, I mean, the last couple of weeks they've dealt with some weird stuff, but not on the feet, not like talent wise on the field adversity, that kind of thing. But it's also it draws. Like, again, I think Dak is a better player than Ryan Tannehill, but I'd have Dak at like whatever 8th or 9th in the NFL and Tannehill at 14th or whatever. I mean,
they're all the same. I mean, like
that
Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen is like a tier above those 2 guys. But when you're talking about like Jimmy G and Matt Stafford and Derek Carr and Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott and Ryan Tannehill, they're all the same. Those are the same pitchers.
I might have Dak at the top of that tier of players.
Yeah, but he's still not out of the tier, right? So, like, what good is being at the top of the tier? To me, I love Dak, and I am with you. I would take Dak over Ryan Tannehill
in 2 seconds.
I would not, I wouldn't say the same about Kirk Cousins, and I wouldn't say the same about Derek Carr. No. But like, no thought in my mind, I'm taking Dak. But there is something to be said when you look at Burrow and Allen and Mahomes. To me, it's like, okay, it's Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and whoever the third best quarterback was that was floating in and out of the rotation.
It might AFC. It's not in the AFC, but the third guy might have been like the other 2 guys might have been Breeze and Rodgers.
Right. And they're in the other section. But so like, it's like you're going to see Burrow and Allen or Burrow and Mahomes in the championship games more often than you're going to see for the next few years, more often than you're going to see Allen versus one of the 2, in my opinion.
I think the 3 of them will command a lot of slots in the AFC championship game. But that being said, Dak Prescott, Brock Purdy, Jimmy Garoppolo, even had he been the starter, or if he comes back, Jalen Hurts. There is something to be said about finding guys that aren't number 1 overall pick. I mean, obviously Josh Allen was a top 10 pick. Patrick Mahomes was a top 12 pick. I believe he was 11th. I believe
was Mahomes not 17 and Watson 12th? I thought Mahomes was 17.
Either way, I think it's upper half of the first round. Point is high level guys, and obviously Joe Burrow number 1 overall. But I don't think and this is maybe what Rand Carthon's number one job is with Mike Vrabel, is to continue building the organization into such a way and into such a place that they can find their Jalen Hurts or their Brock Purdy or their, whoever else it might be, that can, because the organization is built so well, like the Niners, that all of a sudden you find one guy who's just good enough, and that's the guy, and it's not Malik Willis, and it's not Josh Dobbs, and Ryan Tannehill's kind of aging out of the league at some point here. That's sort of that's another lesson, I suppose. I don't know about Jalen Hurts yet. I need to see more from Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with me, is that Jalen Hurts had the team. Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. You still have to go out there and you have to make the reads, you have to make the throws. However, the Eagles did everything they could to make sure that Jalen Hurts didn't have to be the guy.
Yeah.
Right? Because, you're talking about a spectacular offensive line. You're talking about a spectacular series of pass-catching weapons and an effective run game built around the strengths of Jalen Hurts.
And a really good defense.
And a really good defense. All things that you need for a guy that's in his second full season starting, third year in the league, that looked absolutely abysmal and out of place just a year ago.
What franchise does that sound familiar to, Zach? Oh, you mean the one they're playing on Sunday?
Yeah.
Because those two franchises sound almost identical.
Right.
When you describe them.
It will be interesting to see if the Eagles, and I know we're getting a little far ahead, Eagles have to generate turnovers. Because Brock Purdy is immaculate. He throws the most uncatchable, interceptable balls I've ever seen. So they can do the same kind of pressure that the Cowboys did, and they can generate some turnovers. They're going to win. And I think my thing is I think the 49ers are going to abuse this Eagles offensive line. They are playing really well. And I think that the key is going to be how Jalen Hurts reacts to his first real sense of danger and pressure in the pocket.
Well, and we'll do a lot more of this on Thursday, but if the game plays out like the Dallas Cowboys-Niners game does, where every yard is an absolute war, that's going to put a lot of pressure on Jalen Hurts' decision-making. So we'll have to see about that. The other side, who cares? Just sling it all around.
Right.
Let's hope Mahomes is healthy, and let's hope they just chuck it all over the place for the entire thing. All right, we were going to do some SEC stuff. Do we still want to try to get to that, or is there anything else?
We've done 57 minutes of NFL talk. I know you have a big heart on for power rankings and stuff. You love a good power rankings.
I actually don't like power rankings at all. The Jags right now are plus 3,500 to win the Super Bowl, the 11th in the NFL. The Titans are tied with the Colts, which I think is so stupid technically, because they're both plus 7,000. I don't think anybody with
How many of the teams that are at the plus 7,000 have their staff fully in place?
It's just those two. It's just the Titans and Colts.
Well, they don't have their staff fully in place,
and neither one of them does. Houston's at 31st in the NFL plus 10,000. The reason I say all of this is to sort of take a snapshot in time that we know Jacksonville is going to be the preseason favorite to win the division, and that the Titans are probably clearly number 2. I'm curious what you think, who could be number 3, either Indianapolis or Houston. And then my real question is, how much mobility do any of these teams have over the course of the next 3 or 4, let's say 3 months, which would include combine, filling out your staff, free agency, and draft?
Okay. I think right now you'd have to say the Colts are, if you're looking at the roster and you're looking at the just what they are like right now, Colts are third. Now, I think mobility is way up in the air. I think that you're talking about both 3 of these teams have top 11 picks, right? The Texans have the 2nd overall. The Colts, I believe, are the 5th overall. Titans are 11th overall. They all have important coaching positions still open. I think that you could see all of them jump. Guess what? I know this may shock you. I'm still not sold on the Jaguars. And they have so many free agents, 1-year people that are important free agents to this team, hitting free agency. They're $19 million over the cap. They're in a worse cap position than Tennessee Titans. They're still a young team. The Chargers just suck so much that the Jaguars got away with a win, even though they shouldn't. I mean, they really shouldn't have got out of there with a win. And nobody talks enough about the 4 interceptions that he threw. Yeah, I know he get it through 4 touchdowns, but the Chargers just shut the bed.
He was bad.
He was bad. And he was bad in the game this past weekend. They couldn't beat a Patrick Mahomes. They let Chad Henne drive 98 yards down the field to score a touchdown. They were horrendous. They couldn't take advantage of anything. I don't believe in this Jaguars team, and I know I want to say something. I know Trevor Lawrence is better than Blake Bortles. This is about to be the 2017 season aftermath of the offseason for all of 2018. Jaguars this, Jaguars that, Jaguars. Woo, woo. And they're going to look stupid because the Tennessee Titans are going to win the fucking division next year.
Oh, I like that. I like that bold prediction on
It's not a bold prediction.
January 23rd.
Is strictly illogical.
Well, I mean, they were one terrible call by the officials away from winning the division this year. So
no, it was a terrible call by Josh Dobbs not to run the play properly.
I love how we're arguing the same thing in a different way. I love that. No, I think my whole reason of bringing this up is that.
Can I say something real quick? They have Trevor Lawrence. They're going to be totally fine. This was a bonus year for them. Sure, whatever. If you enjoy 8-8, 7-8, 7-9, or whatever it is, sure. That's about what he is, because he went through a piss poor baby schedule of past defenses that made him look good. And it's just, I'm over it.
Your disrespect.
Trevor Lawrence is you want to know where Trevor Lawrence is going to end up in his career? A Dak Prescott, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill. He's going to be in about 2 or 3 years. We're going to be talking about him in that kind of scenario.
Your disrespect for Charlotte Bird is offensive to me. She was wonderful in Ozark. I thought Trevor Lawrence I thought he did a great job in Ozark as Marty Bird's daughter. Anyway, the reason I brought it up was that I think, and I think much higher of Trevor Lawrence than you do, but that's well documented. My point is that Jacksonville was like 11th, and the Titans and Colts were tied at 25th. And to me, that gap should be significantly closer, and that the Titans and Colts have no business being at the same level. That was my only observation.
I think there's just a lot of uncertainty around the Tennessee Titans, and you got a new GM. Nobody knows really what to expect or what will happen. You don't have an offensive coordinator in place. You don't have an offensive line coach in place. You don't know. It's just so much uncertainty that I'm not surprised by any of the Vegas odds. And spare me, this Calvin Ridley's coming back. That really worked out for Deshaun Watson. Take a full fucking year off.
It was 2 years, wasn't it? And slightly different situation, but we'll see.
Well, you're out of the league. You're out of the league. Sitting out a year. Ask Le'Veon Bell how that helped him.
I'm with you, but dealing with 27 lawsuits is not the same thing as training.
Oh well, listen. Let me tell you something. It's not the lawsuits that were the lawsuits were a problem. That's not what hindered his ability to play football. It's that he was rusty and came out of the league.
Yeah, I agree.
He was terrible.
I agree. I think it's a lot harder at that position to be rusty versus a wide receiver to be rusty. 1 year versus 2 years.
Here's
turmoil versus non-turmoil.
Calvin Ridley won't have more than 800 yards in receiving.
All right, there we go. Writing it down. 800 yards. Calvin Ridley. Okay, got it. Okay.
People just want to be so scared of the Jaguars, and they're just so scared. I mean, Joshua Medina, I see him on Twitter all the time, just being so scared of the Jaguars and their future. It's utterly ridiculous. They barely beat the Tennessee Titans with Josh Dobbs. Spare me.
I am not. Again, I will say this as a neutral observer in the entire division. Trevor Lawrence is by far the best quarterback in the division. The Titans are way closer to the Jags than people think. I am not scared of the Jaguars, but they are the slight favorite to win the division. That's how I would.
And they will be, because Vegas is gonna take all your all's money and bet on it and all this stuff, and really you're all gonna lose. They totally want you to buy in onto the Jaguars, just like from 2017 to 2018. I'm telling you right now, this team will be probably the same record, and because they're going to face a tougher schedule.
Okay. I listen. I appreciate your optimism for the Tennessee Titans.
It's just logical. It's not really optimism.
Now, fully healthy Ryan Tannehill and a new coordinator could do some damage. So.
Well, it's just ankles. I mean, those ankles will be fine.
It's just ankles.
They'll be fine. I mean, it's not like he got fucking tore his ACL or his fucking head is ripped off his body. It's just ankles.
Wow, that'd be quite an injury.
Yes.
Like a
Those are actual injuries to bring up and be concerned with.
A decapitation. When can you get back?
Tears.
When can you get back from the decapitation? What's the average recovery time from the decapitation? All right. So stay tuned on Thursday. We'll have some announcements for our next week's coverage from the Senior Bowl. Got a lot of cool stuff Zach's got planned for you guys. Make sure you check out the Substack as well. We were going to get to some silly SEC drama, but it's too much NFL. It's too much NFL.
Go to the Fringe Element. Listen, go subscribe and listen to the Fringe Elements, also on the 440 Podcast Network. That's where you can go to get the SEC drama, because it's probably going to be a lot more detailed and interesting from them too.
Do you want to know how Ole Miss dominated the transfer portal, how Tennessee did in the portal, how Jaden Rashada turned down a $13 million deal to leave Florida to go somewhere else? We got all that stuff covered for you on the Fringe Element podcast, so go check it out. Lots of drama. Got Ole Miss stealing coaches from Bama. It's going to be all kinds of fun stuff, so go check that out this week. Club and Country podcast covering Nashville SC. You got the football and other efforts with Zach and Mike Herndon, of course. Check out Mike Herndon's work at paulkaharski.com. Also now part of the 440 Sports Network podcast, so go listen to that. Kingston Group Pharmacy, our great and awesome and amazing local sponsors. Support local business people that live here, that work here, and operate here in Nashville to serve you Nashvillians. We love these folks. Kingston Group, buildkg.com, and the pharmacy, of course, right over there in McFerrin Avenue in East Nashville. So check out all that great stuff and all the other shows. Otherwise, please share the product. Tell one person about it. We appreciate all that you guys do, all the comments. I still love you, Joshua. Don't listen to Zach. You guys are great. Thanks for hanging out. This is a football show.